Dscribe Finals Footy Show. My name is Brodie Cowburn and I'm your host, and I'll run you through our very talented panel of guests we've got today. First, to my left, much like the Tigers, she's gone back-to-back, or hopefully anyway. She's been here for her second week running. Please welcome Jess.
Thank you. Good to be back here.
Going across now, he's seen the flight prices for his beloved Ds to go watch them in Perth, and now he's preparing to trek and walk the 3,261 kilometres to Perth Stadium. That'll take 27 days and 8 hours. I looked it up, so he's going to have to get cracking and go now. Please welcome Matt.
Thanks, Brodie. As soon as we've done here, I'll be running across the Nullarbor.
You can shave some time off if you really get your sneakers on.
Yeah, well, I haven't gone for a serious run in a while, and I reckon I don't think if I started now and I started running, I won't make it until this time next year.
Next to Matt, we've got Miss Consistent over here. Keeps sticking around no matter how hard we try to get rid of her. Of course, it's very easy to front up when your team's up and about the way that Melbourne are. Please welcome Nat back to the panel.
Thank you. 3 weeks in a row.
And finally, at the very end there, making her long-awaited return after the first week, much like Gary Ablett returning to Geelong, but hopefully she's not broken down and crap like he was when he came back. Please welcome Jessie back to the panel.
Thanks, Brodie. Appreciate it.
Guys, so good to see you all again. It's been so long, 7 whole days since we've been all together, and this is the first time we've had this makeup, so it's very exciting to see you guys all out and about. Our biggest panel yet, of course. Lots of egos to balance. I've got my work cut out for me over the next half hour or so. We'll get stuck right into it, and we'll talk about the first game of last weekend, which was the Hawks and the Ds playing off against each other at the MCG. North Melbourne fan, Carlton fan, I guess we'll just run out of the room for 15 minutes and let the Melbourne kids run away with it. Start off with you, Matt, closest to me. What did you make of the game and how are you feeling?
I was really nervous going to the game. We weren't sure what we were going to expect. We were expecting Hawthorn to bounce back, and the first few moments, well, I think Hawthorn kicked the first goal, and it was like, well, maybe it's not like it was irrational, but but it was good. Once Melbourne got going, it was really pleasing to see, and then watching the game. I mean, every time we had a set shot, my partner Kate was with me, and I was just always holding her. I was like, oh, please kick the goal and all that. So it was nerve-wracking, but very ecstatic and very happy.
She's really had her work cut out for her, Kate. I know she's an Essendon fan, so she's really just had to play chief support role over the last few weeks. How's she handling putting up with you while Melbourne are on this run?
Well, she knows that I can get very passionate about Melbourne, but she ended up cheering on Melbourne, so that was a good sign. So yeah, very happy.
Very good egg. Nat, you were at the game as well, were you?
Yep, I was.
How did you manage that stress?
Yeah, it was very stressful, but it was great fun. I guess in the last quarter when the Hawks started to come back and they kicked those 3 goals in a row at the start, I was getting a bit nervous. I'm like, oh, you're kidding me? Is this really happening? Like, we've been in front practically all game. And that was a bit of a mini scare, but then the Ds managed to take it away. So yeah, super happy with the result.
I'll open it up to either one of you to talk me through one moment in particular, being there in the crowd. Hopefully you can cast your mind back to Jack Gunston riding into an open goal to put the Hawks very close. Does one of you want to talk me through how that went down, how you were feeling in the moment of the game?
I think that was a really big turning point in the game as well. I mean, if he would have kicked that goal, there would have been a bit of momentum going back to the Hawks. So we managed, I think, to rebound after that and then kick a goal ourselves. So it was a massive turnaround and definitely killed any momentum for the Hawks.
Yeah, I was going to say, your boy Jack Melksham kicking that crucial goal, particularly after the Hawks went bang bang in the fourth quarter, and yeah, you'd be happy to see him running around in the red and blue, surely, Brodie?
In a way, with Jake Melksham performing so well, it's a bit like Essendon won the preliminary final, just in a little way. Michael Hibbard, of course, a good player for you guys as well. You're very welcome for that.
Yeah, very.
Well, I guess in addition to Melksham, one of the big stories was that Melbourne's big guns certainly fired against the Hawks. Taking some notes here. Jack Viney, of course, is probably the man of the match. He was absolutely excellent. There was that one play at the end of the game where he was spinning and kicked into the forward 50. That was excellent. Christian Petrarca, good as well. But one person I really want to focus on, and I'll throw it to you, Melbourne guys. Tom McDonald was someone that really impressed me, and he's just a player in general that's impressed me since making that move forward, because he really strikes me as that sort of old-fashioned rough and tumble, no frills, full forward that you don't really see in the game nowadays, but he's just a strong mark and a strong kick for goal, and in the absence of Jesse Hogan, he's really just been a revelation, hasn't he?
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely taking some really strong marks in forward 50, so giving the players, the midfield, a bit of an opportunity for a forward a main forward target. So he's definitely taken that role. And I think even though Sam Wiedemann was a bit quiet as well compared to the game against the Cats, he definitely provided another option as well. And it was really important having him there as well.
Yeah, I was just to say as well, I think there was a stat on Fox Footy, they were talking about it. Tom McDonald, when he was defender, was like, he had the 4th most goals kicked on him to now kicking goals in the forward line for Melbourne. And also, I think that's underrated. I think people actually understand how fit he is. He actually works up the ground as well, which is really important. And it sort of creates that chaos that Melbourne really are passionate about and really build their game around, that sort of frantic half-forward line, and sort of ends up being a lottery. You end up seeing the Joe over the goose over the top, Neil Bullen kicking a goal in the goal square. That happens a lot. But that's sort of what happens when Tom McDonald and Sam Wiedemann work up the ground. So, but he's been so important for Melbourne this year.
Very good. And Jessie, over there at the far end, hello, so far away, good to see you. From an impartial point of view, how big a role is momentum going to play with Melbourne? Because of all the sides in the finals, I guess amongst casual following and the bandwagon's probably the biggest of all the sides left. How much of an advantage is that going to play for the Ds in the next maybe 2 weeks?
I think it's going to be huge. I myself, I'm definitely on the D's bandwagon. I really want them to go all the way, and I think if they bring the momentum from their past 2 finals games, not much is going to stop them over in Perth. Obviously, there's a difference with Josh Kennedy being back for the Eagles, which didn't happen when they played them last time, but I think they've definitely got the potential to go all the way.
And Jess, you took down some stats, some key players that are probably going to come into effect for the West Coast game as well. You want to tell us who stood out for you?
Yeah, well, I thought Jack Viney, as we just spoke about, so influential in that game. 27 disposals, 5 tackles, second game back, and now he's had like a great finals campaign. He is the one to watch, and I reckon he's going to lead the Melbourne Demons to a good game, and hopefully they can win. But I also did take note of their goal scoreboard pressure. So for Hawthorn, they really only had 2 major goal kickers in Gunston and Roughhead. But Melbourne, they had Tom McDonald kicking the 4 goals. And then they also had multiple goal scorers in Sam Wiedemann, Melksham, Brayshaw, Spargo. It was just spread across, which was really good to see. So I think that'll be a huge thing going into the West Coast game because West Coast have Kennedy and Darling. So that's going to be the big difference for them. For Hawthorn, like Liam Shields and Isaac Smith were their really major ball winners, and they were the best for them, but they just couldn't get it done.
You have to wonder if Alistair Clarkson might have put in a cheeky phone call to Cyril Rioli on the eve of finals. Obviously now the Hawks have gone out in straight sets and not looked like much of a threat throughout the last couple of weeks. Certainly an X-Factor player like that would have been pretty handy, but just wasn't to be the Hawks' year, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's also handy, and Nat will agree as well. When Luke Bruce kicks 0-0, and that's because of the job that Neville Jetta did, and it was, I think that was also pretty key. And if you think of the matchups, which we'll touch on later on when we look at the West Coast Melbourne game, Lord Nev is going to have a challenge, matching up against Liam Ryan and young Rioli there. So he's going to have his hand, but I have full faith in him.
Just confirm that you said Lord Neff.
That's what he's known by.
Right, there you go. I did not know that. Should we do just a real quick round of word association with you guys? Jack Viney, give us one word.
Mongrel.
Mongrel? I thought you were going to say something nice. I was setting you up for a nice little softball, happy-go-lucky.
Just the way he goes about it. Absolutely.
Come on, naturally.
I'd say determined.
Determined.
Yeah.
See, that's nice. That's what I was looking for out of you. Not to lead the witness or anything. Well, we'll move on because we will talk about the Demons later on because, of course, there's another big task ahead of them over there in Perth. But we will touch quickly on the Collingwood GWS game, which was a little closer than the Demons encounter with the Hawks. A huge win for the Magpies. They're up and about in September. It's been a little while since they've been around here. Obviously, after Mick Malthouse left, it was a pretty steady decline for them. But now they're in amongst it. Jess, you want to tell us a little bit about what you made of this game?
Yeah, well, it was straight into it for Collingwood. 5 minutes in, they were up in disposals, 27-8 against the Giants. Jordan De Goey was a big influence, kicking those 3 goals. But the thing for Collingwood, can they only rely on De Goey to kick goals? Like they actually need someone in their forward 50 to be that big man, and Mason Cox has not been that person for the past couple of weeks. So they really need him to lift. Their defence, though, that's what kept them in the game. Braden Maynard on Toby Green, which we'll speak about, keeping him goalless, keeping him uninvolved in the game was huge, and he was really successful. And if he can do that again this week, that'll keep them in it against Richmond. Their midfield was really strong. So Sidebottom, Treloar, Phillips, all with high possessions, and they just knew what they were doing. Grundy in the ruck, so he knew where he was going, and that really kept them in it. But I think they need to find someone in the forward to kick some goals to get them on the scoreboard.
Of course, worth mentioning when you talk about that defence, there was a blow during the week when it was announced that Darcy Moore won't be fit for the preliminary final, which is a big blow, but we'll touch on that when we preview the game. Jessie, over there, we were having a little chat off air about Toby Green. Obviously, he's such a star player for them, and a complete misfire from him, wasn't it, over the weekend?
Yeah, when, like Jess has just said, when they've shut him down completely, no score involvement, you can tell that makes a difference to the Giants lineup when nothing's going right for them. Toby's not doing anything. He's not taking any marks. He's not kicking. And when he does get disposal, he got probably holding the ball a couple of times. He just wasn't his day. It wasn't Giants' day. It was Collingwood's day, I think.
And you were devastated to see that it wasn't Toby Green's day, I'm sure.
Yes, I was very sad. Very sad to see him out.
It's probably worth thinking about. He's been injured the whole year, and of course there's been a plethora of Giants who have spent so much time on the sidelines. That's pretty much what came back to bite them in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think just needing that extra game experience behind them. Finals is a different game, obviously, but it's still a game of footy. You still need your strongest side with you when you're going along. But
And also Collingwood have had similar problems with injuries. I mean, there's still heaps of players that are on the sidelines, and we'll touch on it more, but, Ben Reid's another one. Daniel Wells, who came to Collingwood on big money, he's struggled to string consistent games together, and there's more names on that injury list that are not in the team. So Collingwood have had similar issues. So you're right, Brodie, Collingwood's day in the end.
Yeah, and Nat, obviously talking about Melbourne and their wave of momentum, certainly a wave of momentum behind the Pies as well, because I'm sure that everyone is well aware who's ever watched one game of football that when the Pies are up and about, their fans are certainly not very quiet about it. Can they keep going?
Yeah, for sure. I guess this game, Friday night, will be huge. It's Richmond and Collingwood, so two massive membership bases there. It's at the G, so there's going to be huge crowd noise, and hopefully, I'm hoping the Pies will get up against Richmond, but who knows? I don't know. I kind of wrote the Pies off earlier, but I'm kind of back on it again, and hopefully they can get the job done.
Of course, a couple of big names potentially playing their last game for the Giants as well. Ryan Griffin confirming his retirement, and Dylan Shield potentially on the outer. I'll just throw it out to the panel if anyone wants to touch on Ryan Griffin. Obviously, he was an excellent player for the Western Bulldogs for quite a long time and left just before a while they were on the precipice, I suppose, of their premiership glory, but he's been an excellent servant to the game over the last 10, 15 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, I think he sums it up right there. I think he still goes out on a high. He got to play finals, so that's a win. But he's definitely been a great player for both clubs, and we wish him well.
Yeah, indeed.
It's an interesting thought that really his move to the Giants saw Tom Boyd go the other way, and Tom Boyd was really the difference in that Western Bulldogs grand final. So in a way, Ryan Griffin has been a key contributor to the Western Bulldogs. But anyway, as Jess said, we do wish him all the best, and it's obviously Dylan Shield's last game before moving to Essendon next year. So
oh, come on,
plenty
he might
of
come to Carlton.
Excuse me.
Just maybe.
The three of you
might
might need
wanna
to step
stop.
out of the room for a second.
Depends on how much money they throw at McGovern, Carlton.
That's a very good point, Matthew.
Well,
Thank you
as
for
long
that.
as they take someone that's decent, to be honest, just to help us out.
We'll touch on trade rumours later. That's plenty to talk about. We'll move on quickly into previewing the upcoming games that we've got this weekend. Of course, it all kicks off on Friday night with the Pies and the Tigers. Probably the biggest game that's not a grand final that I think I've seen in my entire life. It's going to be absolutely massive. 95,000 plus packed into the greatest ground on earth. I absolutely can't wait, and I'm sure this panel can't either. Jess, the finals hypes. Jeez, this is a big game, isn't it?
This is a huge game, and like Nat said before, I do hope the Pies can get up, but part of me feels like Richmond's just going to get it done. They know their game so well. They know each other so well, and I think that's the difference. Collingwood, they have a really good game plan set and game structure, but I think they might still be another season away once they just finalise everything and like get into the groove like Richmond have shown for the past 2 seasons. And they're at the MCG as well. It's gonna be a thriller. It's gonna be exciting.
Jessie, Collingwood's getting a lot of love. Can you please balance this out? Because I'm getting nauseous.
Well, I can't really balance it out. I'm just really neutral for both teams. I don't, like I said, I'm on the D's bandwagon. But yeah, it's going to be huge. I agree. It's going to probably be the biggest game that I've seen that's not a grand final. Richmond won last year, so maybe Collingwood can try. But like you said, Richmond's structure, they're just so set on what they've done, and Dusty's come out under those injury clouds. He's been training, so if he's out firing, all of Richmond will be out firing.
But in saying that, both midfields are equally as strong and dominant. So it's really going to come down who can get on the scoreboard, who can kick straighter in front of such a huge crowd.
Are you worried about Dustin Martin at all? I think it was bleeding on the knee, I think was the problem that they talked about. But at the same time, how good is a 50% fit Dustin Martin, and is he enough to win a game for the Tigers?
I mean, he's still going to contribute a lot. I think even if he doesn't play, they're still strong enough to get through the game without him. So either way, they're still going to have a good squad there.
Matt and Nat, scouting out grand final opponents, big game for you guys. I won't get into tips and ask you who's going to win, but I mean, how do you see this game panning out? I'll start with you, Matt.
Well, I was just touching on Dusty. I reckon we might even have, a really interesting battle at both ends. It might be De Goey as the key forward, remembering that he's playing with a sore ankle as well. Your key forwards are all of a sudden De Goey at one end, who's usually playing in the midfield, and Dusty at full forward, who's usually playing in the midfield. And I think, even if like a 50% Dusty will make that much difference, it just gives Collingwood something to worry about. I'm not on the Collingwood bandwagon at all, and I think Richmond will win, but it'll be quite interesting. And I suppose we talked about the fitness of the lists, and Richmond have been consistent not only in their performance, in their structure, as Jess talked about, but also they've had a fit list throughout the year.
It's a testament, I think, to the medical staff at the Tigers, because Dustin Martin was the one in particular that I think we may have mentioned a couple of weeks ago, where I think he's missed 4 games since debuting, and a lot of those Richmond players, as you said, have been able to keep injury-free throughout the entire year, and that a lot of the time does not come down to luck. There is a lot of hard work involved, so it's definitely a testament to the hard work that they put in. Nat, who would you rather play in a grand final?
Oh, it's tough. I don't know. I can't even. It's crazy. Like the other day, I was registering for grand final tickets, and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's not even the grand final yet, and we haven't even gotten through. But I don't know. I think either team would be a huge game as a grand final. So, I mean, I'd prefer Collingwood, but I hope they can get through. But I know how much Richmond are like. They're the biggest contender of the season, so...
Do you think there's an element, though? Obviously, the Tigers were so good last year throughout the finals, but they were the underdogs, and they kind of thrived on not being... Well, they were the hunter, and now they're the hunted, I suppose. Do you think there's an element of stage fright or difficulty that could come into it from the Tigers now that everyone expects them to win?
I guess you could say there could be a bit of that contributing to it, but I mean, Richmond have been so consistent all year, and they've shown that they're more than just a one premiership winning team kind of thing. So to have the season that they've had, I definitely think that they're in it for the long haul, and yeah, they'll probably make it to the grand final, even though I don't want them to.
Yeah, and I agree with Nat, and just by extension, I mean, we've been talking about, even through the last couple of rounds, who we thought would be the obvious challenger to Richmond. And there was a period of time where people thought the Sydney Swans were that team, and then they bombed out week 1. And then, they're talking about, can Collingwood do it? And they're throwing Melbourne's hat in the ring in terms of who they can, who might be, and also, of course, West Coast, who finished second on the ladder. So because that's not really clear, there is that expectation that Richmond will win and go back-to-back, just purely because they've just been consistent. Again, what we've been talking about already. They've been consistent. They've been the form team. And most importantly, they win at the MCG, which you have to do.
Collingwood, of course, not bad at the MCG as well. Hardly a home ground advantage. Jessie, just throw to you real quick. Darcy Moore, we were just touching on earlier, being a key out for the Pies. And obviously Richmond's forward line one of their key, advantages of playing for Richmond is they've got such a dynamic and exciting forward line, an even spread of goal kickers normally, and if Rewalt has a down day, then Caddy can kick 6 and vice versa. How do you see that battle panning out between the Collingwood defence and the Richmond forward line?
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. A lot of the time I've noticed when Jack Revolt's not kicking well, like you said, someone else will step up. So they've got that variety of goal kickers to help them still get over the line. I saw Josh Caddy at Teppanyaki last night, so that might help him kick some goals.
Is that a restaurant?
Teppanyaki, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when you catch the food in your mouth.
Right, there you go. How was his coordination?
Well,
Was
he
he
catching
wasn't
the actually
food
doing
well?
that. He was just in the restaurant, but I saw him. So he's having Japanese food. So it tastes good. Maybe it's Japanese food that you need to eat. Who knows?
That's some very valuable insight. I guess
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get that anywhere else. I don't think any other news source will tell you you're just getting Japanese food last night. We'll run through the tips on the panel. We'll start with you, Jessie, over at the far end. Who's going to win by how much?
Yep, it's going to be Richmond. I think maybe 18 points, something like that.
Nat?
Yeah, I want to say Collingwood, but I have to say Richmond probably by 15.
Richmond by 6 goals plus.
Ooh. Hang on.
Ooh.
Before we move on, 6 goals plus, where's that come from?
Their last quarters all year. I think you can see it happening. Collingwood will have to match it, but I think I wouldn't put it past Richmond, and they've had the week off, and I don't know what impact that will have, but given that we're, 2 seasons now where we've had that bye and that you're really playing one game in 3 weeks, but I think Richmond are going in fresh and they'll outrun them in the last quarter.
Yeah, I agree with the panel. Richmond, by about 3 goals, it'll be their final quarter that does it for them.
It looks like we've got a Tigers clean sweep. I'll tip the Tigers as
Noah
well.
must be very happy as well.
Yeah, I know. My younger brother, a mad Richmond fan. And also, I was instructed to give a shout out. Mitch Clark as well, Richmond fan of the Burwood classroom. Good luck to both of them. Because it's going to be a very, very stressful week, prelim final time. Gee, don't you love it? And of course, the other prelim final will take place all the way over in Perth at Optus Stadium, much to the disappointment of our Melbourne friends over here. The D's and the Eagles, this is going to be absolutely massive. First time Melbourne have made a prelim final since 2000, where of course they lost the grand final to the Essendon Bombers, just in case anyone wasn't aware.
Thanks, Brodie.
But let's stick to the task at hand. Huge game coming up. Matt, what's going to happen? How are you doing?
It's going to be frantic. The heat's going to be on literally, I think they're talking about it being 25 degrees. It's a Saturday afternoon game, and it's just really exciting. Obviously, Melbourne, as we've been talking about, going over with lots of momentum, and they'll be playing against a stronger West Coast Eagles that have Kennedy and Darling playing in the same forward line. I think they're undefeated this year when they're both playing. So, and also they're across their entire their 22. I mean, they're in good form, and at home it's quite a big task to overcome. So it's going to be a fascinating game.
Nat, Melbourne's midfield last week was a genuinely impressive. With your Vineys, Nathan Jones, you got players like Petrarca who come through. That's going to be a huge battle in the midfield, especially with Gawn putting it down people's throats. Obviously, Nick Naitanui been out for most of the year. Do you see that as a big advantage for your lot going into this game?
Yeah, for sure. I think we do have a really strong midfield, and with the likes of like Clayton Oliver and Viney and Angus Brayshaw, who have been really consistent with their performance throughout the final series and even prior in the home and away season. So they're going to be a really massive factor, and hopefully, as you said, with Gawn tapping it down to them, we can get a lot of goals on the scoreboard, and that kind of disadvantage of not having a home crowd hopefully doesn't affect it.
Are there any other key battles that you're looking out for in this match? Where do you think a match is going to be won and lost for both sides?
Obviously down the other end, there's Darling and Kennedy, which when we versed them in round 22, they didn't have them. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to stop them, but I'm looking forward to hopefully like Neville Jetta or even Oscar McDonald, who's been on, and Frost as well, who's been really consistent down back and just, doing the right things down there. So hopefully they can stop those big players. And then hopefully down the other end, like Tom McDonald, I'm sure will continue his brilliant form. And even Charlie Spargo, hopefully he gets a bit more run and a bit more little small kicks in the goals. So, yeah, we'll see.
Can we expect any changes this week from the Demons, from our inside sources over here on the panel?
Well, there's a bit of a rumour, and I might throw this to you, Nat, that there's talk that Bailey Fritsch might make way for Joel Smith. That's a rumour that's floating around at the moment. If that is true, what do you make of it, and how do you think it will impact the team going into Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Melbourne's kept their team unchanged throughout the finals, so having that change would be significant because they haven't done any changes. So, I mean, I don't think Bailey Fritsch has been that bad enough to be dropped out of playing the prelims. So, I mean, Joel Smith's have obviously been playing in the VFL, and he wouldn't be a bad substitute, but I don't know, it just kind of, I don't know if there's really a point to it or whatnot, like if you don't have to, why do it kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Melbourne were settled. I mean, there was also talk that Bernie Vince might make a miraculous return, but Simon Goodwin has confirmed he'll play for Casey in the VFL Grand Finals. So, it is settled, and I'm a bit surprised. And it is pretty tough as well. You've been a part of a finals mix that have beaten Geelong and Hawthorn, and obviously that it must be a structural thing that they might go with Joel Smith. For those who don't know who Joel Smith, his father, Sean Smith, took mark of the century, but he himself has that natural ability. He had a basketball background, came to Melbourne as a Category B rookie, now he's on the list, and I think maybe to contend with the high-flying forward line of West Coast, that's probably the justification, but then again, Bailey Fritsch is known for taking a few good marks, particularly early in the year, and he's got a good kick. So, so the only person that seems to know is Simon Goodwin, and in Goodwin we trust, I suppose.
That's tell you what, that's a change in tune to some of the things I heard you saying earlier in the year. You got some words to eat, my friend.
Well, like I said in episode 1, I did say that I was a sceptic, and then I said if Goodwin won, I'll be a true believer, and we've won 2 finals, and I do believe where Melbourne is, and I think as a Melbourne supporter, and I'm sure Nat feels the same way, is that, someone asked me the other day, do you think what do you feel about Melbourne? And I just believe, because Paul Roos coined the term, the veil of negativity, and even going into the Geelong game, there was that veil of negativity in my mind, and then once I realised that we were going to win, then we beat Hawthorn, it's like you can really believe on what Melbourne are doing. So there's all that. Means a lot.
Jess and Jessie, this has been a lot of talk from the heart, but we'll start talking from the head with you two.
Yeah.
I'll ask you both the same thing. I'll get both of your input on it. Obviously, this is being played down at Perth, and it's been something of a fortress for the Eagles. How big of an obstacle is that to overcome for the Demons on Saturday?
I think it's a pretty big advantage playing over at Optus Stadium. But for me, I think the biggest difference for Melbourne, like the big factor, will be Max Gawn. In the game against Hawthorn, he smashed the hit-outs 41-25 against McAvoy, which was huge. So he's going to be that factor. He knows where his players are. They'll get those clearances out, and hopefully that can get them forward. But yeah, playing at Optus is huge for West Coast. If it was at the MCG, it probably would be a different story.
Do you think Vardy's any chance against Max Gawn to put in a decent showing?
I mean, I think he'll lift in the final.
We'll have to work pretty hard.
Yeah, it is the prelim, so you want to give it everything. But I think Max Gawn, his game is so strong that I don't think it matters where he plays.
Yeah.
I think he'll get it done.
Yeah.
Jessie, Melbourne have got their work cut out for them. How do they win?
I've really enjoyed watching Harms play the last couple of weeks. He was huge against Joel Selwood, against Geelong, and then same Hawthorn and against Tom Mitchell. So I'm hoping he really comes out firing again against West Coast. But Optus Stadium, all the Perth supporters, depends how many Melbourne supporters can get there if they want to pay, $3,000 to fly over there.
Insane.
But yeah, it's going to be huge. I agree, Max Gawn, he's going to be a big game changer for the Ds.
Who would Harms get the run with role against the Eagles, would you think?
I reckon potentially Shuey, maybe. I think he should go head-to-head with Elliot Yeo, because Elliot Yeo was really dynamic in that game, in that qualifying final against Collingwood. So I think Harms should go one-on-one with Elliot Yeo and allow 2 hard nuts in Jack Viney to go head-to-head with someone like Luke Shuey, although there's talk that Hutchings will go to Viney. So it'll be quite interesting, but I actually think Yeo is who should go to.
I do think for Melbourne, they need to improve their accuracy, like, dramatically in front of goal, and then that can give them a chance. But you've got the likes of Willie Rioli, Liam Ryan, destructive forces as well as Kennedy and Darling. So there are a couple of additions in there for West Coast as well.
Could be a bit of a shootout in the end of this forward firepower that we're talking about. We'll go through the tips, and Jess, we'll start with you on the near side of the table. Who's going to win and by how much?
I mean, I'm on the Ds bandwagon as well. It's gonna be a close game. Tipping the Ds by 2 points.
Demons by a goal.
Yeah, obviously going for the Ds, and I think by a goal as well, but it's going to be hard. I mean, Eagles are fresh back from a rest as well, and they've got a really good run against us too, beating us, and plus they've played their last three prelims in Perth and have been undefeated, so... I mean, we've got the tough task ahead of us, but hoping that adrenaline still is kicking through. And yeah, D's by a goal.
You just listed every single reason why West Coast are going to win the game. And
But
you
we
tip
can
Melbourne.
turn that around. So, I mean...
Jessie, bring it up.
Let's go Melbourne 1 point.
Melbourne 1 point, very good. Oh man, I hate to be the one. I hate to be the one, but just for the sake of being different, we'll go the Eagles by, I'll say by a few goals, so not to heartbreak you guys at the end with a very close loss. The Demons are a very good side, and they're going to be very good for a long time to come. Don't you worry about that. You've got plenty of success ahead of you. Before we wrap things up, we'll just quickly touch on the news. Some trade rumours flying around as always. It's getting just too close to silly season for my comfort. Dylan Shield, Andrew Gaffin, Tom Lynch floating about with rumours aplenty. Obviously, Lynch has been locked in at Richmond for a little while, but there's still a few smoke and mirrors going on. But Gaff, I think, is the one that we'll touch on because his manager refused to confirm during the week whether he'd be staying at West Coast, and obviously a prime candidate for North. What do you reckon? Are you guys a shot for him?
I think we are. I think it's something to get excited about, but they obviously won't say anything until after the season's done with West Coast playing this weekend. But I can't call it. I honestly can't. He looks very comfortable where he is, but I mean, I'm not going to say no if he wants to come down to North.
They've had a pretty good year, North. Is Andrew Gaff going to crack into the team? You might end up playing in the Rezzies, the VFL.
I think he would slot perfectly into our midfield. And hey, Jared Pollock's coming down as well,
Yeah,
which
that's all right.
you were talking about last week.
I was.
So, yeah.
North Melbourne finally using that good old war chest they've been talking about for about 6 or 7 years now.
We've been saving up. Yeah.
And the other, I guess, probably thing to talk about, I'm going to just gauge everyone's facial expressions to see who I'm going to throw to here. Rule changes. Jessie over there shaking her head, I reckon you're the one. 666 is the one rule, and the 18-metre goal square is the other, which are likely going to be brought into action for next year. What do you make of all this?
What's the point? The game's not broken, I don't think, myself. So I don't understand why they need a huge goal square to make a difference. If the players they can play on, they can run out the goal square and kick it fine. I don't know.
Obviously, the rules were trialled in a VFL game or two earlier in the year. I think famously they were trialled in the one round where there was about 6 or 7 games decided by under a goal.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But they seem just hell-bent on trying to do something different to reduce congestion, don't they?
Yeah. Well, but congestion's always going to be there. That's the game. I obviously that's why they've brought in the rule changes that they want to do. But footy's still exciting. There's nothing wrong with it, and we'll probably see that over the weekend with 2 huge games. So
Just on the goal square, and to go back to Friday night, Sam Frost his barrel from,
Oh, yes, please.
from went 66 metres, and the direct consequences of that was Melbourne kicked a goal. I mean,
devastating,
and
isn't it?
that's without an extended goal square. And I don't think it will make any difference if you extend the goal square out to 18 metres. The players are just going to push back. Like, it won't change anything, and they'll just push back, anticipating for the ball to go where they think it will go, and then it will just, it's just basically the same stuff except happening a little further out. And I agree with Jessie. The game is fine. The game is in good condition. I think Cam Rayner on Twitter said as much as well. The players, I suspect there are players, most of the players in the AFL don't want the game to change. And I think it's really just a case of having change for change's sake. I mean, we touch on how close the games were. Even last year, like there were, a record for the most games decided under a kick. I mean, the game's fine.
obviously the fans aren't turning away. I mean, the attendances in this final series have been completely just out of this world.
Just quickly, Brodie, if the AFL want to actually focus on the footy, they should focus on making sure that the AFLW is the same and even not a better competition than it is, instead of focusing on these petty rule changes and also the petty AFLX competition. They should be focusing on the AFLW, given it is only, 2 seasons old now, going into its third. They really need to focus on that. That should be the AFL's priority, in my opinion.
You agree?
Very strong words.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
I do agree. We don't need it. The game's fine. It's exciting. It's thrilling, and it's what we all know. Like, why would you change it? And people grow up playing this game. Why do you need to change it now? But I do agree with Matt. Women's footy should come first, I think.
Very good. And one last thing before we wrap things up. Obviously, we've been at it about half an hour, a little over now, and Jessie still hasn't talked about Paddy Cripps. So I'm going to segue into the Brownlow and give her her opening that she so desires. Who's going to win the Brownlow, Jessie?
Cripps. He's just going to smash everyone. I already know it. I can see it now. He's going to be walking up there, kissing his Charlie. That'd be great.
Well, obviously, the next time that we all convene together, it will be a done deal, and we'll know. So I guess we'll go predictions. If you predict Paddy Cripps, is that your genuine prediction, or have we got?
Mitchell will be up there for sure, unfortunately, but I'm still hoping Cripps is up there in the top 3 or something.
Nat, who do you think's going to win the Brownlow Medal?
Yeah, I also think Tom Mitchell will take it away. I mean, he's a favourite and for good reason. He's had stellar games throughout the year, massive disposals. So I'm hoping Max Gawn might be a little smoky, but I mean, it's very hard, as we all know, for a ruckman to win the Brownlow. So, and obviously, like the likes of Clayton Oliver will take a few votes away from Gawny as well. So, yeah.
It's a tough thing as a ruckman when you're putting it down midfielders' throats that they're the ones who get the votes, eh? It's a tough gig. Matt, who's going to win?
Common sense says Tom Mitchell. He's the only player that hasn't been suspended, really, of who they were talking about through the year. And of course, like Nat, I'd like to see Big Maxi with a Charlie around his neck.
Jessie?
I'm actually really confident in Max Gawn standing up because he can cover more than just the ruck. He has a really good game in the back line, forward line, kicked a goal on the weekend, yeah, I think he can spread across. I mean, I'm a North supporter, so I'd like to see Sean Higgins up there.
Oh, yeah, he's a
maybe
good player.
top 5. You know?
I might go Brodie Grundy, just because us Brodie's got to stick together. And I think he's got such good midfield capabilities as well for a ruckman that he might just sneak a few votes. And I can't see too many players taking them off him. So he's my smoky. Just before we leave, one of the things I'm really worried about is throwing to the wrong person who might not be ready to answer the question. So, Matt, who's going to be the best dressed on the red carpet?
Gee, I don't know. I'm quite stumped, actually. I have no idea. Does anyone... we'll throw it open to everyone else. Because I've got no fashion sense, Brodie. You're asking the wrong person.
You got your sweater, collared shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you, Brodie.
We've got the exact same sweater.
There we go.
That's why we put Jess in between us to kind of break that boring look.
Nadia Bartel and Rebecca Judd were announced to make their long-awaited returns to the carpet, so they'll be ones to watch.
Yes.
Nadia actually is pregnant again too, so it'll be exciting to see what she does. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I guess we'll wait and see.
Who do you think, Nat?
I forgot her name, but Joel Selwood's
Now
fiance.
Yeah.
She always wears really pretty stuff, so I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, it's
what about the guys?
I know. Yeah, it is about the football. So yeah. No.
Jake Stringer, best dressed? I don't even know if he's invited. I'm pretty sure.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
My main man.
He's not. The package won't be there.
Well, what can you do? Anyway.
Fife might bring out something good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
another
True.
cane. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious me.
Don't know what he's going to do.
Well,
Look out for Cripps.
we'll wrap things up before we get too off the rails. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to all of you guys for joining in. I think it's been a good show. Keep across everything that we're doing on Dscribe. Make sure to like the Facebook page to read all the stories that have been going up. There's going to be lots of stuff in the next couple of weeks and plenty of footy stuff to discuss. So make sure you like that page. And thank you guys so much for watching.